It is 11:03 in the AM. Good morning, everyone. Hope you all are having a fantastic Saturday. Before we get started, I want to mention two important things. First and foremost, if you have any questions for Caitlin and I, please utilize the Q&A button. It's going to be located right next to the chat button. This helps us keep questions organized, and it ensures that we answer any and all questions sent our way. And secondly, if you require Spanish interpretation, please utilize the interpretation button below. It's located, at least on my screen, in between record and whiteboards. That way you'll be able to listen to the broadcast in Spanish as well. All righty. All right, y'all, look, I had too much water this morning. You know, my throat was a little bit dry, so that water gave me the energy. But let's go ahead and talk about first-time buyer mistakes to avoid. Now, this is going to be presented by Mr. Cooper Group. Now, you may be asking yourself, who is Mr. Cooper? What is a Mr. Cooper? Well, Mr. Cooper, we are a mortgage servicer, and we are actually the world's largest non-banking mortgage servicer. And also, we are in the top 15 of mortgage loan originators across the US. That's a little bit of information about who we are. Next, let's introduce ourselves. Who's going to be the individual speaking with you today? I'm going to hand it over to my partner, Caitlin.
Well, good morning to you. Top of the morning to you. Thank you guys all for joining us this morning. My name is Caitlin Dare. I am part of our talent management team. I specifically work on career development, but I am by trade an originations trainer for mortgage loan originators. So I've been with the company for about 3.5 years. This is the second year Pierre and I have been able to provide this first-time homebuyers mistakes presentation. This is going to be a lot of fun. It's just going to be us hanging out today and giving you some hot tips coming at you fast. I'm going to hand the mic back over to Pierre.
All right, make it hot. Let me stop. But my name is Pierre Arde. I've been in the mortgage industry for almost 11 years. That's how long I've been with Mr. Cooper. Primarily, I work in our talent management department, and I am a manager for the servicing side. So anything servicing related, training needs, that's what we do. We get that handled. But that's a little bit of information about us. Hope you all are ready for some helpful information today. I can definitely tell you from my own experience, my first time trying to buy, my own home, this year, I can relate to a lot of this information. So let's hop into our first mistake, right? Our first mistake to avoid, and that is shopping for a home before shopping for a mortgage. So why does this matter? Well, you want to ensure that you are looking for a loan in a home that you can afford, right? Without pre-qualification, you don't know your purchase power. You want to set yourself up for success, right? So meaning that if I'm going to get pre-qualified for a loan that is $350,000, I know what type of home I can look for that's in my price range. And another reason why you just don't want to set yourself up for disappointment, right? You have to take into consideration that you won't be the only person looking at that home. That's what I'm currently going through right now. You may see a home that looks amazing, and then there's 30 other people looking into that home. That pre-qualification puts you in line with them to help compete to get that home. So you want to ensure that you do that. And I saw it in the chat. Hey, I was doing that a lot too. 2 years ago, I was looking for homes. I wasn't even concerned about the loan. I was like, ooh, that's a nice home. Okay, that's a nice home. But I was leaving myself hanging because I didn't have that pre-qualification. You have to get that pre-qualification first. And also, right, some realtors, they may not work with you if you're not first pre-qualified. They want to ensure that they are working with someone who has already gone through the necessary steps to get pre-qualified and to know what they can be looking for that customer. Now, some things, right, to avoid, some pro tips. definitely speak to a housing counselor or a mortgage professional to understand your affordability. Get pre-qualified. And last but not least, is your pre-qualification amount higher than what you are comfortable paying? I'm going to say this, I'm going to give you my own experience, right? We out here in Texas, we see the home values going up. So I was like, well, let me just see how much I can get pre-qualified for. Let me just try $350,000. I got pre-qualified for $350,000. The mortgage loan professional was like, well, hey, you can actually do $400,000. I'm like, well, hold on now. How much would that equate to in monthly payments, right? Because I may be pre-qualified for that amount, but I also want to make sure that I'm setting up myself and my family for success in getting this home. I don't want to get this home and be stuck with a high mortgage note that, we're barely making ends meet to pay. That's not the American dream right there, And something else that I also want to say too, when also you're getting pre-qualified, definitely be aware of the estimated monthly mortgage payment that you're being quoted for. Now, with that being said, you may get a fixed interest rate, and that is fine. But even at a fixed interest rate, that does not mean that your loan payment will always be the same. Your payment can change if you have escrow. Escrow means that we're collecting for both taxes and insurance. And pending if taxes increase, if insurance increases, then your escrow payment on your monthly mortgage payment is going to increase. So if you're quoted at $1,700 and you're like, I can do that, but I can't go any higher, then you may want to look for something that's a little bit lower than $1,700. Now let's go into mistake number 2. And that's not exploring all of your available mortgage options. Now, it definitely does pay to shop around. This is no different than shopping around for a car, maybe for a credit card. You have the buying power as the consumer, right? You want to see which mortgage company will work best for you and your budget. Right? You have multiple loan companies that can quote you various interest rates, right? Something else that you also have to take into consideration are the origination cost. And they do vary upon mortgage servicers, right? Not only are we talking about interest rates, fees, but we're also talking about closing costs and required down payments. Those are big factors. I found that out for myself this year. Buyers who shop their loans save an average of $450 a year in interest. Now let's talk about some other pro tips, some things that you should be aware of. Now, mortgage applications made within a 45-day window count as one inquiry. That is one hard credit pool. So why not look at all of your options? Again, I'm going to tell y'all from my personal experience this year, I did that. I worked for Mr. Cooper and, I got pre-qualified for Mr. Cooper, but I also did shop around at other companies as well to see what would benefit my family and I. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. Investing in you and your family and, in this home purchase. And they're going to compete for your business. They're going to compete. You have a 45-day window, right? That's counted as one hard credit pool. I think I applied to like maybe 5 different mortgage loan companies. Know your options. You have that buying power. You can also use a loan comparison worksheet that easily compare cost. And if you're not sure where to start, that is fine. I didn't either. There are housing counselors that can refer you to lenders who specialize with working with first-time home buyers as well. So you do have the options out there. And I'm telling you, I shopped around and I still have, these other companies calling me today. It's a little bit overwhelming. They calling me so much, they seem like they're a bill collector. I'm like, hey, y'all are calling me twice a day. I'm starting to ignore you. I pick up, this is so-and-so with so-and-so mortgage company, click. But do that. It's nice to have options.
That research can save you so much money.
Yes.
So much money. And I think about that $450 that Pierre just talked about, what would I spend that money on? That's a lot of Jimmy John's for me.
Yep.
I love a good JJ sandwich. I can put that in my pocket, save for a rainy day.
Amen. That's a PlayStation 5 digital edition.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so let's hop into our third mistake, right? And this is definitely key as well. Missing out on first-time buyer programs. So again, why does this matter? Well, if you don't have 20% saved, don't count yourself out, right? And something else that's also key is that you are only a first-time buyer once, sort of. Now, first-time buyer products, they do include mortgages with down payment requirements as low as 3%, down payment assistance programs that apply at the state, city, or even private level. Now, these programs make home ownership more affordable and achievable. And if you haven't owned a home in the last 3 years, you are considered a first-time buyer. So you can actually go through these benefits as well. Now let's go into some pro tips, right? Some things to avoid. Do your research. There are many programs, but requirements do vary. Again, this is when we go back into, the second mistake in shopping around. Ask your lender if they offer any special loan programs for first-time buyers. That's what you do. Shop around with lenders who can help you access down payment assistance funds. Always ask that question. Do not be afraid to ask what options are available for you. I highly encourage you to do that. Again, this is you and your money. Ask these questions. Consider FHA, VA, USDA loan options. Consider those options, right? And I can tell you, the company that I'm working with now, Mr. Cooper, they have great products that they offered me, and that's the reason why I stuck with them. Not only because I'm employed with them, but they offered me the best options. So now I'm going to hand it over to Miss Caitlin to go over mistake 4.
Thank you so much for passing that baton, Pierre. There's actually quite a few things that we're going to build on that Pierre just talked about. Things to avoid, things to consider, and why it matters. So the fourth mistake is changing your financial situation before closing. And unfortunately, we've seen this with quite a few people who have tried to get a loan and are unable to pull it through to the end because something in their financial situation has changed. And most of these things that have changed are actually in our control. So why does this matter? You are so close. Don't risk denial now. So making this type of a mistake can jeopardize everything you've put into the process up to this point. So everything that happens with your financial situation between the pre-approval and the closing is critical to monitor. So closing is basically when you get your keys. Every time in between then, we want to make sure that we're looking at our budget, we're looking at our financial situation to make sure that we're just keeping it the same from when we pre-qualified off of. So pre-approvals are subject to your income and employment, number 1. Number 2, your credit score. And number 3, your the debt that is remaining on your financial situation. So these are the top 3 items that lenders look at to calculate your ability to repay the loan over time. So for instance, a little bit of a note about your income and employment. So not only can changing your job during this time or your employer, but even how you're paid. So for instance, if you go from a salaried type of role to an hourly or a commission-based type of role, that can also go into a potential risk for your loan, because we want to make sure that we have this stable source of income and we can look back at the history of it. And really, changes to any of these factors can actually, even if you are not denied of your loan, they can actually result in higher interest rates. And we don't want that. And it could also delay your closing. Would hate that for you too. So with that in mind, there's something also interesting to know as well. Did you know, and Pierre actually mentioned this earlier, did you know that your lenders are often auto-notified when other purchases, for instance, if you were to get a new credit card, if you were to pull your credit for another mortgage, the lenders actually have privy to that information. So if you were to, for instance, take out, and we'll get into this one in the next part, but if you were to use your credit card or get a new credit card, the lender can actually be made aware of that, and that could potentially change your financial situation as well. So don't change anything. And this is where we're going to get on how to avoid. Pro tips. Again, just once you are pre-approved, don't make any changes until after you get those keys. So for instance, changing the way that you are paid from salary to commission, try your best to continue your current job to avoid any of these adverse actions, and don't touch your credit. Don't touch it, leave it alone. It could affect your credit score and your debt to income ratio. So what the debt to income ratio is, it's used on the loan application for the lender to be able to determine your ability to repay your monthly mortgage. So your debts as compared to your income, are you able to make your mortgage payment every month? So keep making your monthly payments on time. This one's a tough one. I find this one really challenging. Wait to purchase any of that new furniture. I know Memorial Day just passed. I got great deals on any type of credit before closing. So it can certainly be tempting when you are dreaming of your house, you're dreaming of where you want to put your couch, or that new dining set that you want to buy and put in your dining room. Just hold off as long as you can for buying anything on credit during that time. You can still dream, but just hold off a little bit longer. And then any other large purchases. So this is actually where most of the loans can fall through that I've seen, is that for individuals who are also in the buying spirit, they may want to go purchase a new car. Now, for all of us who own a car and have a car payment, we all know that those car payments are a lot larger than, for instance, putting a new mattress on a credit card. So this is calculated into your debt to income ratio. Hang off or hang tight as long as you can to not put that kind of debt in your financial situation. And again, this time frame is usually only around 45 days, and it's temporary. So it's going to be well worth your time once you actually close on your home, and you can get that furniture. You can get a car if you want to, but wouldn't want to risk your ability to get that house that you worked so hard to get into. And last, but certainly not least, mistake number 5 is underestimating the costs of home ownership. Pierre mentioned a little bit of this in some of the topics that he talked about. Home ownership can look so different from any of us who have rented before. So why does it matter? Home ownership is really about freedom and not being what's considered house poor. And I think someone actually just mentioned that in the chat. So if you've not heard the term house poor, when someone's house poor, it means that they're spending a majority of their monthly income on home ownership expenses such as monthly mortgage payments, property taxes, maintenance, utilities, homeowners insurance. So we know that there are other expenses that you are responsible for that aren't just your home loan. So keeping that in mind, the truth is that owning a home is a huge responsibility, and financially and otherwise. So when it comes to these new costs, you really need to plan ahead for it. So some home ownership comes with new costs such as ongoing lawn maintenance and lawn care. If you're renting like I am right now, and you don't have a lawn just yet, you've not had to factor in having someone come and do your lawn, or buying a lawn mower, or fertilizing, anything like that. Property taxes and homeowner insurance. So this one can kind of hit you hard. Taxes certainly do fluctuate, but as a renter, you don't have to pay any property taxes. You're renting. So that's a new add to your monthly payments. And for homeowners insurance, this could even look different than what your renter's insurance be should you be renting as well. You can't run from Uncle Sam. He's going to find you. You got to pay your taxes. And that does include home taxes as well. And then we see this possible homeowners association dues. So depending on the type of property or where your property is located that you're wanting to buy, that could include a home ownership association. And what this group of people does is they have certain requirements for living in that neighborhood. And one of those is actually ongoing lawn maintenance. And one of the bigger items that homeowners associations do is they require you to upkeep your lawn. So with that fee, it also could come with a community pool, or upkeeping if you're in a gated community, things like that. So you might also have HOA dues. Higher utility bills. Hopefully you're moving into a bigger house. So that means you're going to potentially have higher utility bills. Keep that in mind as well. And last but not least on this, why it matters, is the unexpected. If your AC goes out, which I live in an apartment, and in the past 2 weeks, my AC has gone out twice. It's gone up to 80 degrees in my apartment. And guess what? I didn't have to pay anything because I rent. However, I am also in a similar position as Pierre. I am currently constructing my new home, and I'm thinking about all of the money that I would probably have to pay because my AC went out. So keeping that in mind, that's also something that falls into your responsibility realm. And it's important for you to be able to set that money aside for an emergency fund. If there's a leak in your pipes, or your pipes burst. I mean, living in Texas, we had that crazy ice storm. I think was that last year? I think
It was last year.
That was last year.
Yeah.
Literally would have never guessed that would have ever happened, but it did. So why it matters is that you've got to keep that in mind before you even start looking for that home. So how do we actually avoid these mistakes? Start budgeting now based on your new expenses. So take that estimated monthly mortgage payment plus an estimated amount that you would spend on utilities, that you might spend if you do know you have an HOA fee, things like that. Make sure that when you look at that budget and you're factoring in your new expenses, how much money do you have left over? And with that money that's left over, the savings piece is where this kind of really comes in. So trying to save as early and as often as possible. So even after closing, you still should have plenty left over in an emergency or rainy day fund in order to pay for either the planned or unplanned expenses. And part of what Pierre was talking about earlier were these first-time home buyer programs. For instance, for first-time home buyers, in some instances, you can put as low as 3% down, 3.5% down. It depends on the loan program. However, that's possible for you. You can keep more money in your savings account. So with that in mind, you can also, when you're factoring all of this in, all of your monthly budget, you can look to see what the historical tax records are for that county that your future home is going to be located in. And you can see, are taxes paid out annually? Are they paid out semi-annually? What does that look like breakdown per month? So you can factor that into your monthly expenses as well. And then ask yourself, if I were to have any type of major expenses or repairs within 30 days after closing, could you afford it? Did you put too much down on your loan that you don't have enough for a savings or a rainy day fund? So your financial health is incredibly important. And one thing I would like for you to consider is the lifestyle that you want to live. So I want everybody to close your eyes and think about the lifestyle that's most important to you and your values. So do you want to be able to travel? You want to take your family on vacations? Do you want to help pay for your child's education, or do you want to have other financial goals? Do you want to invest? Having these in mind really helps you to determine how much you want to pay to purchase and maintain a new home. And for instance, here's another thing that I've thought of. If you are more of a homebody, you may want to have a home that maybe fits more of that lifestyle. Maybe you want a little bit of a bigger home or a little bit of a nicer home. If that's a value to you, that's important. And then even just the other side of things, if you want to use your hard-earned money on experiences, or if you really like jewelry like me, then you may want to consider that into the total home purchase and the monthly payment that you're wanting to pay. So keeping this in mind, we are just thoroughly excited for you and your journey. And we know that this might be a lot of information. I see that there are a lot of things in the chat. We've got about 15 minutes left that I do want to spend some time answering your questions. And especially this is free advice. You don't have to talk to a lender for this. And part of this is that knowledge is power. And we hope that this session really provided you with the valuable information in your journey through home ownership, whether this is your first time or your second time or your fifth time. We want to give you some time to answer some questions. So quick reminder, if you have a question about anything related to first-time home buyers, go ahead and up in the Q&A button, you will be able to put your question in there. And I see, let's see, we've got some that are already being answered, but I'll go ahead and answer these out loud as well. So the first question, to avoid being disappointed is better to just build your dream home. That is not a question, but yes, absolutely. Does shopping for loans change your credit score? Katina, that is a really great question. So Pierre, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to. And Katina, that is a great question. So in loans in general, right, there's going to be a credit pool, but the impact to your credit score is going to be contingent upon the credit bureau. In terms of mortgage loans, that's the reason why we always recommend that if you are going to open a mortgage application, like if you're going to go with Mr. Cooper, right? First 45 days, and if you want to shop around, you want to ensure that within that time frame that you are shopping around. It doesn't matter if you shop around with 10 different lenders. Well, excuse me, it's going to count as one hard credit pool instead of multiple credit pools. So there definitely may be an impact, but that's going to be contingent upon the credit bureaus and how they calculate, everything individually, right? I think we have Experian, Innovis, TransUnion, and Equifax. So their calculations are going to be a little bit different, but that's also going to be contingent upon the credit bureaus.
And typically what will happen for each lender is that with your 3 credit scores, so Experian, Equifax, and TransUnions are the 3 that they use, they'll put them in order from highest to lowest, and they're going to use that middle one. They'll use the median credit score in order to determine your affordability. And we also have another Q&A question from Amy Crystal. How do I use my HUD voucher to buy my first home? That's a great question. And I think the best way to answer this is to actually go, you can go online and research HUD counselors in your area. And typically, so with HUD counselors, they have to be located at a certain distance from your zip code. And you can find those in your area, and they can kind of walk you through what that process looks like. But Amy Crystal, that's a really great question. And we've got a couple more that are in the chat. So Charity, I was told I earned too much for down payment assistance. Is there a way around this? You got it, Pierre? Do you want to answer this one?
Yes, because I went through this as well. So Charity, when I was shopping around for loans, right? And this was like, I'm acting like this was 10 years ago, but this was actually back in April, right? There weren't too many down payment assistance programs for me available at that time. So another option that we had was to go through different investors. So for example, if we want to go through Fannie Mae, as low as they would do for down payment is they would just require us to pay 5%. If we went with FHA, the lowest that they would require us to pay would be 3%. So even though you may not qualify for some like first time down payment assistance, definitely get in contact with your mortgage servicer to see what options they do have available. There are other options at the investor level that was presented to me at the time when we didn't have anything available.
Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. Looks like we got another one. What should I start with? Savings, credit, or all at once? That is a beautiful question. And Terrell, what I would say is I think a bit of both or all. Certain loan programs, so for instance, FHA, USDA, conventional loans, those all have certain credit score requirements that come along with it. And with that, it also depends on, there's a lot of factors that go into it. Your lender will also be able to provide you some additional insight on that. So when a lender is looking at all of your qualifications for a loan, credit score is going to help you to not only get into a particular loan program, conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, but it also helps you in getting lower interest rates. So for instance, I do believe for FHA, they are around 500 to a 580 credit score. There are some down payment requirements with a 500 credit score. However, so they'll look at credit, they'll look at your bank statements to see how much is in your savings. And that is really to help to see, do you, let's say that an unexpected expense were to come up, would you still be able to afford your monthly mortgage payment? So I would certainly look a little bit at both. And actually, Christian, you made a really good point. So Dallas Habitat for Humanity, they are great home ownership counselors. They can help you through your own personal situations to help you find the best financial circumstance for you and your family.
Absolutely. Caitlin, if you don't mind, I want to go back to the Q&A because I see the Q&A chat. I see some questions up in there. Amy Crystal, how to battle back from identity theft? That's an awesome question, right? That's another great question here. Some of us have been victims of identity theft. The first thing, and I'm going to land on Caitlin on this as well, but I would say the first thing that you want to do is definitely get in contact with some credit counselors or some of those programs, that specialize in helping you fight back through identity fraud. There are some agencies that are actually out there designed, and that's what they do. They help get your credit back on track through identity theft. I don't have those names, but I would definitely say do your research, find some reputable companies that could definitely help you get your credit back to where it was prior to your identity theft.
That's a great answer. And it looks like J. Lopez, do you have any insight on first-time home buying through the 203K loan? Great question. That is That type of a loan program, I would certainly defer back to the lender that you're working with on that type of loan. I know that those are a little bit more specialized types of loans, and it could be up to that particular lender on the first time home buyers. So I would certainly work with your lender to make sure what types of first time home buying opportunities do you have with a 2 or 3K loan. But really great question there as well. Ooh, so if I would like to purchase a home in September, is now a good time to get a pull on my credit? So this is a really great question. This is from me. I don't know who me is, but here is your answer. So you get one free credit pull a year that does not affect your credit score. You can pull that through Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, and you get one free pull a year to where you can see where your true credit lies. There's certainly Credit Karma that can give you a ballpark, but at least from the perspective of if you're wanting to buy a home in September, just getting a good idea of where your credit is now is going to be really important. And from there, something that we are not credit counselors. I will tell you that we are not loan advisors, but I would certainly think of what I do with my credit is I will set any of my credit card payments or my rent payments, things like that. I'll set the payment to be taken out of my account the day before, so that when it's reported to the credit reporting agencies, it looks like it's been paid off. So it works for you and not against you in that way. But I would certainly use your one free pull a year, and it'll recognize that as well.
Absolutely.
Ooh, okay, we've got Pierre. I got this one. This one's, if you're married,
Okay.
can you get a home on credit score? Or does it have to be together? So that is a great question. I will tell you my personal experience as well. My husband and I getting a home right now. But my husband has went from a salaried position to a commission-based position in the last 2 years. And with that, it makes more sense affordability wise for it to be just on me with my name on it, because I can show that I've been in this type of a role for the last 2 years. So they look at a 2-year payment history or employment history to see how you have been receiving your funds. It just shows stability. So you do not have to, by any means, go on a loan with someone else. It is not required. You can if you would like. Sometimes it does help financial situations. And when it comes to the credit scores, when they pull both credit scores, they're going to take the lower of the middle 2 scores. So they're going to take this one right here and say, okay, this is what we're going to qualify you off of.
Yep. Can I add to that too, Caitlin?
Please.
Yes. And what Caitlin said is 100% accurate. That's 100% accurate. You also do have certain investors, even though you can apply for the loan yourself, certain investors, if you do have a spouse, they may have a requirement to have their credit pulled, not so that they're on the loan, but to see what their debt to income ratio is as well. So it really just depends on the investor as well. They may not be on the loan, but they still may do a credit pull, on your spouse just to see what that buying power is.
Thanks, Pierre.
No problem.
Capri, another one in the Q&A. I have a job change due to the pandemic. Would that be a huge factor? That's a great question. Through these past 2 years, there have been many changes to the way that lending looks and this is investor wise. So when we talk about loan programs, we talk about FHA, VA, conventional. Those are investors, and really they've done a lot of looking back into their own guidelines to see where can we still provide loan opportunities for our people given the circumstances. So what I would recommend is, again, when you're working with your lender, they may ask you to provide additional bank statements from maybe or additional W-2s or 1099s to see what you've made over the past few years, just so they can get a better idea of what type of income you've had and your affordability in that way. So it may just require a couple extra steps. However, I would certainly recommend getting with your lender to understand exactly what else might be needed to help your chances of getting a loan. It's a really great question.
You see, if I haven't worked much in the past 2 years, can I apply for a loan after a few months of consistent employment? Well, what we will say is this, I'm going to lean on you on this too, Caitlin.
Sure.
But one thing that I would definitely say we would recommend is to get in contact with these lenders, because different lenders may have different requirements and they may have certain expectations. So it's always best to seek out, a mortgage professional or a housing counselor, for that type of question. Caitlin, what do you think?
So yes, and with the previous 2 years, that is for most loan programs, they will take a look to see what types of incomes you have been making. So I would certainly, again, I know this is like a deferral question. It really just depends on each lender. So Mr. Cooper might look different from Bank of America, from Chase, and how they decide to loan money, because I think that's the other ultimate thing too, is that we are loaning money, so it's a lot. But I certainly think that work with your lender. They'll be able to help you in your financial situation. But my friends, it is 11:44. We are so happy that you were able to join us today. We hope that you got a lot of information from this. Thank you all so much for joining. We can't wait to see you again next year. Hopefully by that time, you'll have a new home.
Yes, and one more thing to add too. So after Caitlin and I's session, please ensure that you go to the second general session where guest speaker Tashara Parker will host a panel discussion and Lady Jade will announce our first 4 raffle winners. Hey, Lady Jade, if you're in here, hey. Now let me stop. But y'all have a great day.
Go enjoy the rest of your day. Be merry. See y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.